Welcome back to Positive Whispers. So picture this, okay? It's late, the room's totally dark, and the only thing you can see is that faint, kind of cold glow coming from your smartphone screen. You've literally been staring at this one conversation thread for what feels like absolute hours. Finally, you're just like, you know what, that's it, I'm done. You force yourself to lock the screen, flip the phone face down on the nightstand, and just roll over to stare at the ceiling. You try to focus on the shadows, try to think about work tomorrow, try to do literally anything else to just distract your mind. But you can feel the phone sitting there, right? Just waiting. You tell yourself you're done checking your phone, and honestly, you really do mean it in that moment. You try to fall asleep, but maybe 5 minutes later, your hand just reaches out almost on its own. You flip it over, tap the screen, and nothing. Just a blank, empty screen. No notification, no message, just that visceral, heavy, sinking feeling right in the pit of your stomach. It's a completely everyday experience, right? It feels so intensely personal, so isolating, and honestly incredibly lonely in that moment. I mean, let's be real, we've all been trapped in this quiet, almost cinematic moment of anticipation and crushing disappointment. And this brings us to a really profound psychological mystery. Why does your brain keep returning to someone who isn't giving you attention? Seriously, why do we absolutely obsess over the absence of a response? It completely defies logic. If someone's ignoring you, basic self-preservation should just step in and tell you to walk away, protect your peace, and focus your energy on people who actually value your time. But instead, the silence just pulls you in deeper. The less they say, the louder your thoughts become. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly what is happening in your mind. Because this isn't just about modern dating or bad texting habits. This is a story about how your brain can literally get hijacked. All right, section 1, the prime suspect, the power of uncertainty. Okay, let's dive right into this first major psychological suspect. To understand why you just can't stop checking your phone, we have to look at how the human brain processes the unknown. And it really comes down to a pretty simple equation. The brain plus uncertainty equals intense fixation. See, when we know exactly what's going to happen, our brains can finally just relax. If you send a text to your best friend and you know they're going to reply instantly, you don't obsess over it. You send it, you forget it. Boom. But when the outcome is up in the air, when you don't know if they'll reply, when they'll reply, or what they're going to say, your brain just goes into absolute overdrive. The uncertainty creates this powerful, almost overwhelming sense of anticipation. Your mind starts treating that unanswered text like a high-stakes puzzle, representing either a potential reward or a potential threat. And it marshals all of your cognitive energy to stay hyper-focused on it until that uncertainty is finally resolved. And this uncertainty, it creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. Basically, that's unpredictable attention, where someone is sometimes warm, sometimes distant. And it makes a behavior incredibly hard to stop. Think about the person you're texting. Sometimes they're warm, engaging, they reply right away, and you feel great. Other times, they're totally distant, cold, or leave you on read for like 24 hours. Because you literally never know which version of them you're going to get, your brain gets completely hooked on the possibility of the reward. It's the exact same psychology behind a slot machine. If you won every single time, you'd get bored. If you never won, you just walk away. But winning sometimes and completely unpredictably, that makes the behavior almost impossible to stop. You just keep pulling the lever or, checking your screen, hoping desperately that this is the time it finally pays off. Moving on to section 2, the hidden mechanism, the unfinished loop effect. Now, intermittent reinforcement isn't working alone here. There's a hidden mechanism running in the background of your mind. We so often view an ignored text as this massive personal romantic rejection. But functionally, in your brain, it's actually acting like a cognitive glitch. Enter the Zeigarnik Effect. This is the brain's natural tendency to remember unresolved situations and unanswered questions far better than completed ones. It's the exact reason why a cliffhanger at the end of a TV episode is so frustratingly effective. Your brain absolutely hates open loops. When you send a message, you initiate a loop. The reply closes it. So when that text is ignored, the brain views it as an unfinished task. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a puzzle your brain stubbornly refuses to put down. It just keeps pushing the thought to the absolute forefront of your consciousness, essentially flashing this giant task incomplete warning sign in your mind over and over and over again. Which brings us to section 3, the true motive, validation versus connection. To truly understand what's driving this, we have to look inward and really challenge our core assumptions about what we're actually feeling. And fair warning, this requires a bit of deep, maybe slightly uncomfortable reflection. So ask yourself, do you actually miss this person? Or do you miss the validation you hoped they would give you? Just let that sit for a moment. It's a heavy question, right? But it's meant to be a turning point in how we understand our own behavior. Often, the absolute agony of being ignored feels like this deep, romantic longing for connection. But if we strip away the romance of it all, we might find something much more self-centered and entirely human hiding underneath. So let's compare. On one side, there's missing the actual person. This is genuine emotional attachment. You miss their laugh, their specific insights, the way they made you feel safe and understood. But on the flip side, there's the desire to repair a wounded ego, missing the validation. When someone pulls away or ignores us, it triggers some really intense feelings of rejection. And rejection fundamentally wounds our self-worth. Suddenly, getting a text back isn't just about catching up with them. It's about proving to yourself that you are worthy of being chosen. You become desperate for them to reply just so you can patch up that bruised self-esteem. Your brain completely fixates on the person who rejected you because getting their attention feels like the fastest perceived way to restore your value. It is absolutely crucial for us to identify which side of this dynamic we're actually experiencing. And that leads us to section 4, the trap, the endless checking cycle. That desperate need for validation, it leads directly into a trap. Because the worse you feel about the rejection, the more anxious you become and the more you desperately seek some kind of relief. It's a behavioral loop that's probably way too familiar to most of us. Step 1, you're thinking about them, feeling that tight, heavy anxiety and uncertainty right in your chest. Step 2, you cave. You check their profile, or you check to see if they've read your message or if they're active online. Then comes step 3, which is the really tricky part. You get a moment of temporary relief. Maybe you see they haven't been active, so you tell yourself, oh, they're just busy. Or maybe you just feel the physical release of finally giving into the compulsion. But guys, it's false relief, because it immediately leads to step 4, more thinking. You've literally just fed the fixation. You gave your brain a tiny little hit of data, which just restarts the Zeigarnik Effect and that intermittent reinforcement cycle all over again. Checking doesn't soothe the anxiety. It mathematically guarantees it will return. So the crucial point is, how do we get out of this? Section 5, breaking the case, escaping the mental loop. Diagnosing the cognitive glitches and the wounded ego is fascinating, sure, but it's really only half the battle. We have to actively break the case. So here is your actionable toolkit to escape this mental loop. First off, you absolutely must stop the repetitive checking behavior. It is literally the oxygen feeding the fire, so cut it off completely. Second, reduce those visual and digital triggers. Mute them, archive the chat. Get rid of the constant reminders that prompt your brain to reopen that loop. Out of sight really does help lead to out of mind. Third, and honestly, this one is incredibly powerful, accept uncertainty instead of trying to solve it. Literally tell yourself, I don't know why they haven't texted, and I am choosing to be okay with not knowing. Stop playing detective with someone else's silence. Fourth, redirect your attention to meaningful activities. You've got to give your brain a new puzzle to solve, a new loop to focus on that actually adds value to your life. And finally, identify if your attachment is to them or just to the validation. The exact moment you realize you're just trying to repair your own ego, the spell often breaks. Look, we don't want to rely on generic advice here like, oh, just forget them, because let's face it, that doesn't work. But systematically dismantling the psychological loop, that absolutely works. I want to leave you with this final, really profound insight to chew on. Sometimes the person you can't stop thinking about isn't the real problem. It's the unanswered question your brain keeps trying to solve. Once you realize that your mind is just caught in a cognitive glitch, seeking validation it doesn't actually need from a source that isn't providing it, you regain your power. You can just close the loop yourself. If you found this explainer on human behavior fascinating, make sure to hit subscribe to Positive Whispers for more psychological deep dives just like this. We are here to help you understand your mind. Until next time, take care of yourselves and, hey, maybe just put the phone down for the night.